Welcome back to the Shipyard, and
Stars Matas.
hello, and welcome to the first episode of
Diving into the factions.
first episode of Diving into Factions with Starmatas and the Shipyard, and our faction of choice this week is the Vulcans.
Yeah, and in thinking about that, I went, this episode will make a lot more sense after the Vulcan Faction pack comes out, but personally, I'm tired of waiting on WizKids.
Yeah, because honestly, I don't have good predictions for when things are going to come out.
I mean, I
It
do.
definitely needs that faction pack because that's gonna come up in the video.
Yeah, it is. Plus, the previews that exist for it are somewhat promising. There's like 3 cards that have been spoiled. So there's a couple of things when you're looking at the Vulcan faction. First, what in the world, I guess, what in the universe is their identity? Well, we got a taste of it right from the start with Spock. Now, granted, Spock was a Federation card, but Spock interacted with scan tokens. And the Vulcans have extended that. They have a few ships and other abilities that like to scan.
I'd say a good chunk of their ships also seem to have almost sniping motifs connected almost directly with the scan token.
Mm-hmm.
That being the Nivar, where you get bonuses for using a scan token and attacking at range 3. And then, of course, the Dakir, which just gets a bonus for attacking at range 3. They like to hang back as they just kind of observe these primitive cultures. And then, when the primitive cultures start pointing guns at them, they're just all like, we're just going to stay back here and fire our guns at range 3.
Yeah. The Vashar, which is a preview ship, a upcoming faction ship, is another one that uses a scan. You spend your scan, and then the next attack that you make with your primary weapon ignores the defending ship's shields. That's going to be a nice ability. It's still a 3 attack die ship, but there's some things you can do. You can buff it with like Type 8 phasers and get it up there. Of course, now I'm not being a Vulcan purist. I do apologize about that.
Well, if the Vulcan Faction pack is anything like their older packs, they might have some new version of combat vessel variant specifically for the Dakir class ships. That would be really nice to see.
That would be very nice to see. So there's a chance, and the Vulcans do get nice quality. Of course, you're spending your action getting a scan token, so I don't know. There are pros and cons to everything there.
Good news about scan tokens is regardless of what you use it to spend it on, as long as you don't actually remove the token from beside your ship, you always still get that really good reduced agility on your enemy, which I used to honestly think was one of the worst moves in the entire game, and I still honestly think that it is one of the worst moves in the entire game, but it does have its place, especially when if you're, funnily enough, fighting against the Federation. Most of their ships only have 1 green. So as soon as you scan, now it's like you're fighting the Borg, which usually is not something you want to do. But in this case, being able to know that all your hits will actually hit is a good thing.
There are certainly times the Federation like to buff up their defenses, so putting a chink in those and knocking down their total defense dice helps as well.
Like when you decide to run an 8 defense dice Oberth in the Fremount tournament. Yeah.
Yes, well, all good things must come to an end, as they say. But then again, I'm not. In addition to scans, they like to interact with auxiliary power a fair bit.
Yes, that is definitely one of my favorite aspects of this faction.
I think of cards like Power Grid, Talkir. It's the ship.
That's the one where it's a very similar ability to the ISS Defiant in that you can gain a evade result to your roll at the cost of an auxiliary power token beside your ship. That's the Talkir.
Yes, not the Solea. I'm sorry, the Dakirs all kind of blended together, but the Talkir is the good one. Because, well,
Definitely.
I shouldn't say the good one. It's the defensive one. Of course, once you do that a few times, don't ever plan on taking an action again.
Yeah, I know. You can only have so much absorption on the ship. I think you can survive. I ran one against Endorian Pure, and I sent the Talkyrian on its own to serve as a distraction, and it managed to go, I think, an entire round of being bombarded by, I think it was 3 heavily built battle cruisers, and it still didn't have an Ox token by the end of the turn.
Okay.
Because it just had, I threw so many copies of Power Grid and Auxiliary Control Room on it, and it just kept absorbing all those Ox tokens.
Okay. Yeah, that is the other thing is Power Grid and Auxiliary Control Room are not unique. They're not even ship unique cards. So as long as you have copies of them or proxy copies of them, you can just pile them on as long as you have the slots.
Yeah, and
So,
there are ways to get extra slots on Vulcans. I'd say they don't have the best ways. They're not as good as the Federation or Independent at getting extra slots, especially when you use that Vulcan High Command talent, which is honestly sometimes makes me scratch my head with how kind of bad it is. It works
it's a nice ability.
until it doesn't.
Yeah, like I don't mind the card, and really, it's a fine card. It's just a little too expensive, and then of course it has that drawback of losing
If your captain's
stuff.
discarded,
Yeah.
you lose everything. This is why you want to always equip it to your admiral if you have an admiral on your ship.
Yes, which is very
Yeah,
helpful.
because it's easier to lose a captain than your admiral, and then you still keep the upgrade. But high command, its whole thing is you get 2 slots of your choice, and it's 5 points. So that's a heck of a markup. I guess the point is you get to choose what the slots are. I guess that's what WizKids was thinking when they made it expensive.
Sure. But okay, so even then, I buy that there's a premium to the slot choice, but I don't buy that there's a big premium. It should have never been a 5 point card. The flexibility that exists there is fairly good because there's times you want crew, there's times you want tech, there's times you need a little bit of both.
Well, it still has the restriction of it can only be applied to a Vulcan captain on a Vulcan ship.
Or lore.
Or lore, I guess so.
Yeah. Lore just goes,
So
yeah, I'll be taking that.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Q should
So I guess
also
it's
have that ability. So I guess I want to see another version of Q that can just do that.
maybe that should come out with a Q ship.
Maybe. Anyway, we're here about Vulcans. So yes, for the most part, this can only go on a Vulcan with a Vulcan captain on a Vulcan ship. And for the most part, Vulcan captains with elite talent slots are
There's a lot of those.
unremarkable. And so actually what you're saying about putting this on an admiral doesn't even work because then you're not buying Vulcan High Command for a Vulcan captain. Because an admiral
I
is
never
not a
thought about
captain.
that because he isn't a captain, is he?
No.
Although when you look at the Vulcans, I think the majority of Vulcans have elite talents, which is yeah. I think I would say it's a minor majority, but I think on average most Vulcan captains, like over half,
Yeah.
have elite talents.
I guess you are right.
Which is, I guess, another sort of interesting point for the faction. As a whole, it's sort of like, yeah, we know what we're doing. We're like, 200 years old. We know what's up. We're elite.
Yeah,
We're
so
very talented.
even like a 4 skill captain, Tavin, for example, has a talent slot. And you rarely see 4 skill captains with talent slots. Now, I will say right now, no Vulcan captain has 2 talent slots. So that's
Also,
something that's kind of holding them back a little.
mm-hmm. Also, I'd say they don't have a dearth of good talents. I know there is one good talent, which
Ooh,
you're
I
going to be
argue
talking
with you
about
there.
today.
I think the Vulcans have three good talents.
Okay, I'd say I probably don't own any of those three good talents then.
Because Caliphate
Okay.
is weird but good, and it's good because it's a 1 point talent.
Is that the one that's based off of the Spock versus Kirk? Da da
Yes.
da 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 da.
Yeah, the fight.
Yeah.
Because being able to take, say, a 1 point crew, put them up against a more expensive crew, roll off, and the loser discards their crew. That's not bad.
Oh, that's giving me Blood Oath vibes. I love Blood Oath.
And diplomacy is arguably the best Vulcan card in the game. So
I don't know.
it's you and I are going to sit here and talk. Nobody can shoot at us. We neither of us can shoot. And we get rid of all of our tokens. Except Ox Power.
Ooh, that would be fun to use against an angry Prometheus.
So
Um, I mean, no one really flies angry Prometheuses, but it would be good against one. Just hey, you got to throw away your weapon,
yeah.
or against Voyager with its blade of hull armor.
Well, the third talent I like is Vatosh Katur. That's not the best, but it's buyable.
Yeah, I was right. I don't own any of those. I own all the ones written in English.
Ah, yeah. So diplomacy is English.
Okay, are you sure? I'm joking.
I'm not saying the British are very diplomatic, but meanwhile half our audience disappears.
I know at least one guy from the English games who'll watch these. Um,
Yeah, see, I know plenty of Scotsmen who do. They're
oh,
over
well,
there lifting a pint to
that's
me
not
going,
English. Scottish ain't English.
I know, they're lifting a pint to me going, way to go, lad.
All right.
Anyway,
Okay. There's
I will.
also another thing I want to bring up about them just quickly is they have some. It was like they wanted to be dual faction, and I think they came out during the era of dual faction, but they weren't dual faction, and there are some Federation cards that can be thrown on Vulcan ships for no penalty. I'm thinking Vulcan Engineer and T'Pol.
Yeah, and there's that
And
one.
T'Pol is another good example of what we were talking about, being um, she uses scan token ability and she gives you a slot, a tech slot.
Mm-hmm.
The Vulcan Engineer comes back to that old sniping, keeping your enemies at a long distance, because he can repair only when no one's within range 1 to 3.
Right. And there's Captain Vanek, who says all of your Vulcan and Federation tech upgrades cost -2 points. All done before Vulcan was a sub-faction of Federation. So if you wanted
Yeah,
to
so
put Fed stuff on a Vulcan ship or a Vulcan on a Fed ship, you were paying a penalty to do so.
you can see that they eventually were leaning towards the idea of mixing the two factions together.
Yeah,
Which
and I
is,
think it's for the best.
yeah, as I like to refer to them as Diet Federation in many ways. Because aside from those strong points that we pointed out, a lot of the Vulcans' sort of crew emulates the Federation crew.
In ways, yeah, the engineers at least kind of remind me of Montgomery Scott.
There's actually they've got at least, from what I can see here, at least 2 anti-cloak cards, being a Murrock crew, who's actually a pretty decent one. He's a dice roll based decloaking ship.
Hmm.
And you've got yourself the sensor grid, which can decloak. I think it's an AOE decloak. Oh, if you paired this with a Hura, you could decloak all ships within range 1 to 2 of your ships, I think.
Oh, you'd go up to range 3 with Uhura.
Yeah, sorry, with range 3.
Yeah. So there's something there. I feel like the Vulcans are a bit Fed, a bit Dominion. They're kind of like this weird middle where they don't truly have their own identity. They feel like they've kind of begged, borrowed, and stolen parts of a few.
And they didn't necessarily take the best, or at least they didn't take enough of what they needed.
I think that's it.
Um,
I don't think that they didn't take the best. I think they didn't take enough.
yeah,
Because
that's it. Because when I play them, I definitely get the feeling of like I own 3 of the Vulcan ships. And how many Vulcan ships are there in total? 4 or 5?
there's 5.
Like
There's the
ships?
Timur,
5.
the Saleya, the Navar, the Dakir, and the Talkir.
I own 3 Vulcan ships, and I can run almost one of every card for less than 100 SP, I think. Because that's what I did when I tried to fight the Andorians. And let me tell you, don't fight the Andorians with Vulcans.
Not right now, no, because Telev's battle cruiser came out with anti-Vulcan tech, not necessarily tech cards, but just cards in general that fight Vulcans. And I feel like the Vulcan faction pack is going to come out with some anti-Andorian cards, and then we have an arms race on our hands.
Oh, it's going to be great, honestly. I'm pretty sure it's going to be great.
That will be grand.
With the Andorians, they had one ship. They had probably almost no identity, one ship. Well, that one expansion was very, all about aiding friendly ships. But then
Sure.
Taliev came out in the Motley fleet, and that was hammered home the point of, yes, we're going to be about helping friendly ships. But then they just threw in a whole bunch of other upgrades like, oh, you just get to repair your ship for free. And other cards like...
And if a Vulcan ship comes in range, you get to just wipe it off the board.
Kill them. Yeah, that great... What is it? Disable this card to blow up 2 Vulcan ships around? Something like that. That's what it feels like.
We are exaggerating here, just to be completely clear.
The repair for free is an actual card. It repairs 1 shield every turn for free.
Yes.
In the end phase, it's ludicrous.
And
it's ship unique, so you can throw it on every single one of your cruisers.
Ships like
I
this
am right
need
about
help.
that, right?
See, that actually feels like a Vulcan card to me.
Yeah, I'm thinking Vulcans better come should have a... If they want to make some synergy with that pack, there should be a tech card which lets you repair a shield or hull for an Ox token.
Okay, yeah.
And then there should be another card which, similar to the Andorian one, which just repairs at the end of the phase. It should be a card which just removes an Ox token at the end phase. Maybe make it... How much would you say that would be? 4 points?
3.
For something like that? Well, see, the Calvin Timeline faction pack had a 3-point checkoff, which was 3 time tokens to remove one. This would just be an end phase removal.
Oh, okay, then
So it'd have to cost more than 3.
Probably 4.
Or at the very least, it would have to have some restrictions, like Vulcan Captain, Vulcan ship.
Or, I mean, okay, so Vulcan ship only.
Vulcan ship only, 3 points?
I could see it at 3.
Yeah, okay. Also, as for their ship slot loadouts, pretty much all of them have tech and weapons. They vary in the number of crew.
Yeah.
Like the Dakir is 2 tech, 1 weapon, 1 crew. The Talkir is tech, weapon, crew. The only one I can think of that doesn't have a weapon native is the Navar and probably the other Surat class, but they have ways around that with their combat vessel upgrades.
Right. The Timur goes double tech crew, whereas the Navar is double crew tech. But that's because the Timur is a tech-based ship.
Mm-hmm.
And sadly, the Vulcans just don't have cheap tech. I mean, they do. They have the tractor beams, but they need more. They need other cheap tech.
You need more than just make your enemy re-roll 1 die. I don't think I ever play those. Well, I mean, I play them if I have the 1 point to spare and I'm playing Vulcan. They have cheap weapons and cheap tech.
Yeah.
Well, they have a cheap weapon and a cheap tech.
And a cheap talent. They just need more.
Oh, and the power grid is only 2 points, so that's the cheap tech, and that is I'm probably going to make that almost an auto include in my Federation builds now. So how good that card is.
It depends on what you're trying to do.
True. Sometimes I'm tempted to include a card just because I like it, and then I realize it serves zero purpose in the build.
Exactly. Eh,
An example of that would actually be Sopek, who I love him. He became my favorite captain, and then I tried to play him a bunch, and I realized I almost never successfully managed to use him, despite him being so good on paper.
Yeah. Like you have to have a crew who's not in action that discards because you need the action to bring Sopek back or to activate Sopek to bring the crew back.
Yeah, the build I always wanted to go with was something like a strong weapon, maybe even anti-matter mines. Throw Kern on there, and then throw Sopek on there. Use your attack to drop the minefield. Discard the minefield card. Then action Sopek, get Kern back. Next turn action Kern, get the minefield back. Then drop the minefield. So every other turn you would be dropping a minefield, and you could just have an infinite amount of minefields. But honestly, if you're going to do that, you may as well just run a Tholian ship.
No, don't ever do that.
Oh, I haven't actually played with my Tholian ship, so I don't know if it's actually terrible or not. I really want it to be good.
It's good in one scenario, peak performance, where you get to keep on keeping on. I mean, Tholians are fun, don't get me wrong.
We talked about the identity. What ships do you buy if you want to get started? What ships do you want to run if you're running on Tabletop Simulator?
Yeah,
Well,
there's only 5 ships.
yeah.
The downside is 2 of them are prize ships. Or sorry, one's a prize ship, 2 of them are boosters.
Yeah, and there's only 2 retail, so you gotta wait for them to go down before you pick them up. Blind boosters you can pick up fairly cheap, sometimes even cheaper than the retail ones, which makes sense because they hold less than the retail ships.
They do.
So you could probably pick up both the blind boosters. Mind you, I don't think I've seen what was the Surat class one?
Is that the Timur as a prize ship? Because only Dakirs have been boosters.
Oh, okay then. All right, yeah.
Because
I
they were the
haven't
only
seen
ones with
the
enough
prize
points.
ship Vulcan ship very often. I don't think.
No, because nobody really wanted it.
Oh,
Although
so no
that
one's
is the
selling
better
it.
prize ship. The
There.
Timur is the one that has probably 3 of the better cards. In fact, I don't even value the other prize ship. I got to figure out what that prize ship was, but
You don't even hear about them very often.
it's the Timur has diplomacy, Vanek, which is a decent captain, and Kos, which is a nice protection card. Those are
Yeah.
those are
So
three pretty good cards.
yeah. So if you're starting out and you can't track down that prize ship, I would say probably pick up the Talkir because it's a blind booster. It's not too hard to find.
Yeah.
Um, and that's the one that has the you can just shrug off a damage in order to take an ox. It comes with a captain which has an almost identical ability. Mind you, it's listed as a free action, so you can't have an ox to begin with in order to use his action. So he's good for the opening round if you're using him on the ship. And that is Solek. He's the only Vulcan card in the Vulcan faction, I believe, that is actually set outside of the Enterprise era, I think. I could be wrong about that, but he's based off of Captain from Deep Space Nine. He lets you evade or scan as a free action for an ox. So I would say pick up the Talkir, pick up the Dakir because it comes with some good ships. It comes with an iconic character being Soval. And your third purchase could be up to you. But I would suggest the Nivar. But then again, I just really like the Nivar, and so that's sort of a favoritism bias.
Yeah, I
In
don't
my
mind the
eyes. So
Navar. I think the Navar's a fine go for it.
It is a cheaper ship to run. It's the cheapest.
It is.
Comes in at 18 points at unnamed.
And there's a couple of cards on there that you can make some use out of.
Yeah, it comes with the 1 point tech we were talking about.
Yes.
It comes with the Sopek. Everyone wants it to actually work, but it's kind of hard to get going, Captain.
But it does open up some interesting builds.
I'm
talking.
If you have other options, I think you could get it to work. Yeah. Also, it comes with 3 copies of Vulcan Commandos, which I don't think I've ever gotten them to work. Honestly,
no. Me neither. It's just expensive.
Yeah. Are there any cards which discount Vulcan crew?
Not currently.
There needs to be a Vulcan, like, all Vulcan crew costs cheaper on this. Maybe it'll be like, I don't know, Vulcan Expeditionary Force is an elite talent. That would
Something
be a good one.
like that. That would be nice.
But now we're getting into making up cards, and that's not really what our job is.
No, but that tells you where this faction is, in that they need help in order to be something.
True. And here's an idea, though. Because this is a sub-faction, and got to remind some of the purist players out there that sub-factions are a thing, and you can sub-faction on a faction without breaking pure rules. Throw Captain Pike on here. Reduce the cost of all your crew by 1. And you've got yourself... actually, if you want to be really fun, doesn't the Mirror Universe Admiral Pike have a similar power?
I don't think he discounts.
No, okay, never mind.
He's all about specialization cards.
Ugh. Yeah. Okay. So.
I knew where you were going
Pike,
with that.
It would bring it down to 6 points for the commandos, and I think is Pike a 2-point captain? He's an old captain, so he's probably more expensive than he needs to be.
3.
That, or he's grossly underpriced. The early sets were a bit weird like that, weren't they?
Yeah. I got the
Everything was underpriced or overpriced, and things that should have been generic weren't generic.
Oh, worse, Pike's 4.
4 points?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's actually not any cost savings. Never mind.
I mean, you get a nice skill captain.
That's a 1 point more than just running the 3 Vulcan Commandos because they're 3 SP.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nope. Okay. Well, there's some other captains I think that discount your crew.
Calvin Hudson.
Okay, but he's captured.
Make the ship capture your ship. Put Calvin Hudson on it.
Ooh,
it all works.
What was it? Assimilation target prime. That has no faction penalty, right?
Yeah. So if we're really trying to do something here,
but that's only 2 crew slots.
Okay.
I think it's only 2 crew slots for Assimilation Target Prime, the new one.
I think it is, but I got it. It is. It's 2.
So yeah, no. So that's also. I mean, it might be worth.
Vulcan
if you actually are running an Assimilation Target Prime build, it might be worth throwing them on there.
There's a Vulcan captain that adds a crew slot.
That's Sopek
or Tavik.
He was designed. Oh yeah, he was Tavik. Yeah, he's the cheap one, isn't he?
Yeah, he's 2 points, skill 3.
That's actually, I like that. I mean, I don't play him very often if I'm playing Vulcan Pure, just because there's other captains I want to use. But I think he would be useful on definitely some Federation ships.
And your tech gets discounted by a point.
What?
On ATP.
Oh yeah, ATP. Alien versus teleporter.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we've gone way off the rails here.
Yeah, we were talking about what you wanted to buy first and what you wanted to play in.
Okay, so what you want to play in Tabletop Simulator is you want to try out all the prize stuff. You want to try out diplomacy and caliphate and see if you like that kind of stuff. And from there, you can decide if you want to actually go buy it.
Yeah, see, that's the smart thing to do. Instead, I just watch all the Shipyard's videos 8 times in a row and then buy it without testing in tabletops.
I mean, I do appreciate your view hours. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's yeah, here I found it. You know what you could do on ATP? There's a Borg upgrade which converts all your slots to crew.
Oh,
Neonatal Borg.
okay, okay.
That could be a way to run them.
That could be a way to
And
do it.
or if you run it with what's his face, Locutus, the other Locutus, I think the first one, he can turn off shields, right? So you turn
I
off your
think
enemy
so. Yeah.
shields, turn off your enemy shields, and then beam your commandos aboard.
Okay. See, I just prefer projected stasis field to turn my enemy shields off, but
Oh right, I forgot about that. I always forget about that. I have this weird thing where I don't actually play the really good cards because I find it too easy, and then I completely forget those cards exist when I need to play in a tournament or something.
see, the way to do it is you PSF your opponent, and then you have Martok 8 come in, give your ship a bonus action, and then you hit them with Vulcan commandos.
I just remembered one other really key part of the identity. Sorry, this is episode 1. We're all over the place. All Vulcan ships have a 180-degree firing arc. Amazing. That's
And
just what I wanted to say.
and don't they also all have reverse maneuvers?
Ah. I think they all have reverses. I think they have different speed reverses.
You might be right on that.
Where is my... Yes, the Sirach class has a -1, and the Kier has a -1. And because they come with those beautiful power grid upgrades, you can reverse to your heart's content. You can set up your ships backwards at the beginning of the game and fly backwards across the board to attack your enemies. I wouldn't suggest doing that, but you could.
Well, I think that's the perfect transition into how do you fly the faction well. You
don't fly them on their own. That's my advice.
Yeah.
But we have to be a little more constructive than that, don't we?
Well, and don't set them up backwards and fly them in reverse. But I think there is a bigger point here. Make use of the fact that they have these tech that mitigate aux power, be it the moment you take it or after the fact. And don't be afraid to reverse. Don't be afraid to make your red turns. Because your key is being a little unpredictable in your maneuvers and utilizing the assets that you have at your disposal. So you have the ability to not take aux or get rid of your aux. Use it. Because if you don't use it and you're waiting for that perfect moment, oh, what if my opponent gives me an aux power token? No, just use it and keep using it. And that's how you're going to be better.
That's the long and the short of it when it comes to flying them, is to use your aux. The other one is, I would say, keep your enemies at a distance.
Yeah.
If you're flying ships that have sniping abilities, because once you fly close range, you kind of wasted the extra points on your ship. Don't split the party. That's my other one.
Don't joust with them.
See, I made that mistake. I think if you're fighting ships that don't have 180 firing arcs, you have a good chance, and you're of course not fighting someone with a 360 firing arc. If you're flying, essentially, if your opponent is flying 90 arcs, which is most opponents in the game, you will probably win most turning contests with the Vulcans. Because they have their sharp turns, and they can pull them because of their aux management, and they've got the 180 arc. So you can shoot sideways.
So don't be afraid to do something weird, like set your ship up on an angle, come in from the side, be a little unpredictable with how you're actually going to approach. Delay combat a round or two by kind of banking and weaving to get into combat. Make your opponent come to you, and you get that initial pot shot at range 3, and that's a good thing for you.
Yeah, I definitely made the mistake of flying full in there and trying to engage, and then sneak up from behind. That didn't work. You got to keep your enemies in front of you or to the side. Keep a clear shot on them.
I mean, this is probably another video, and I'm probably not making any friends by saying this, but Jousting takes 0 skill. Knowing when to joust takes a lot of skill.
Kind of brings up the to build on that, not making any friends. Klingon faction is a good faction for starters.
It is,
for that reason, actually.
But it's also a great faction.
That's not a bad thing.
For more advanced players, because you come back to it and you have to learn how to censor echo. And you have to learn a whole bunch of other things in order to really fly it well.
Yeah, when you got a 180 arc, you don't need to echo. Honestly, because
not really.
You've already got the thing. And these guys, remember, if you're going up against Vulcans can remove your cloak tokens with the right upgrades.
Yeah, so analyze your opponent's fleet and go, okay, do they have a way of messing with my cloak tokens? Note that they probably want to scan, so don't depend on your defense dice. Maybe if you're a cloaking fleet and you are up against Vulcans, you don't want a cloak. You want to just come in with your shields, because a shield is a guaranteed defense, whereas your cloak is getting scanned through.
Yeah, and you'll want to engage them at range 1. But
yeah, 1 or
because
2.
There's honestly very few blind spots when it comes to these ships.
There are, yeah. The other thing is the Vulcans can be very easily out-captain skilled.
So yeah, if you're going up against, you'll want to out-captain skill them. Chances are you'll have stronger secondary weapons with better quality. Keep in mind, though, all Vulcan ships can battle stations.
Yep. They can all target lock.
Yep.
So a lot of Vulcans will want to target lock you on round 1. Use it or not, depending. And then if they don't use it, round 2, they're going to battle stations and hit you with both.
I'd say a good strategy for going against them: get in there and disable their ox mitigating. Either discard or steal or disable their power grids, their auxiliary control rooms. Disable those cards, because then they're not going to be able to turn. They're not going to be able to reverse. They're not going to be able to use their obscene amount of survivability.
Or if they do, it's slower.
Yeah, it's slower. And I would say Vulcans, if a Vulcan ship is built to survive everything, eventually it'll start running on fumes. That's the other thing. They need to run away to repair and re-enable everything. So if you keep the fire on them, you might be able to sink their ships. Because, like, as I mentioned, the Talkir, I built the Talkir with Solek, so it could survive a bunch. It survived 1 turn, didn't take an ox. After that, it's going to start piling on the oxes. Now, it's still going to be hard to kill that ship, but the ship's not going to be able to do actions after that, because it'll rely so heavily on its ox mitigating powers that eventually it won't know what to do necessarily. The player might not have come up with a plan B for how to deal with the ship. I would say a good plan B might be some sort of self-destruct device, but you'd need to get rid of the ox tokens first, because you'd need to pair it with the Ferengi teleport thing, which clears all tokens from beside your ship.
Or warp
Inversion
jump.
Wave, I think it is. That's technically a banned card from, I think, even casual play, technically.
No, nothing bans kitchen table.
Okay. See, someone tried to convince me that it was, because there was a wording in a WizKids article that stated they had banned cards, and it didn't specifically state OP. Anyway.
Well, Inversion Wave was covered under that, too.
So let's see. So,
anyways,
strategies for killing them: bring bigger guns. That's just a good one. Bring bigger guns with bigger quality.
I mean, isn't that a general strategy?
Well, the idea is there's some factions that already have bigger guns than you. In which
Ah,
case, you want
okay.
to fly smart, not like
Okay,
if you're
okay.
flying the Maquis, right? You want to fly smart and fast. You
It's
don't
like,
want to bring a big gun.
how do you win a basketball game? Score more points than your opponent, right? I mean, I'm reducing it down to the simplest variable, but just, how do you win?
Okay,
Score more.
there's a little more esoteric quality to some of these things. It's just that kind of comes down to, I guess, when you look at the Vulcan faction, in that it's kind of lackluster in some respects. And at the end of the day, yeah, score more points than the Vulcans and you win. It's not like the Borg, where it's about cut through their shields and then they're sitting ducks, or the Romulans, where kill their cloak and then they don't know what to do. It's kind of comes down to like the Kazon, just play better.
True. I think you did make the best point though when you said disrupt their combos, disrupt the upgrades that they have going on. Right? A
Yeah, 'cause they
fragile
need their
Vulcan
combos.
depends upon diplomacy to protect a very valuable ship. If you get in there and disable it or discard it before they can use it, you have turned the tide on them, and now you get to make an attack on that very valuable ship to them.
All right, so what's next on the list of things?
Well, I think we jump to how thematic is the faction.
All right, thematic. I would say it. All the cards, or almost all the cards I've seen, feel like the Vulcans from Enterprise. Um, they're that being said, they don't feel like the Vulcans from the rest of the series so much. There's not so like I haven't seen as much, like diplomacy. I mean, the diplomacy upgrade is of course the biggest example of being thematic, but
Yeah.
most of the others is about, yeah, we're super tech savvy and we scan a lot, but there's not as many scan cards as I'd really like for this faction. But that being said, there's definitely this era of we've got superior tech. Like they've got good they don't have great weapons, but their weapons aren't too overpriced. So in their price bracket, their weapons are pretty good. Not counting all the new stuff, of course, which is just amazing. I love their sort of the ox mitigation feels thematic too, in a sense. I would say.
It does.
I think just the other thing is the pictures on the cards always seem so smug, and that just makes all the cards seem thematic.
And that plays a role in the thematicism. I'll say this. From Enterprise, you grew to, well, at first you didn't like the Vulcans, and then you kind of grew to like them because of their actions. And I felt like they did a pretty good job of conveying that the Vulcans were a decent protector. They have their role as kind of a galactic peacekeeping force. I'm not 100% sold that this is the entirety of the Vulcans. I don't think they're as thematic as Klingons or Romulans or
Oh,
even
no,
the Dominion.
Yeah. I would say a good example of them being thematic just right here is the Surat class and the combat vessel variant upgrades, right? There's science vessel. It's a 2-attack ship. It's got tons of shields. Doesn't have a weapon slot. And then the Vulcans are like, okay, yes, we're all about science and research, but we're also one of the most technologically advanced races of the Enterprise era, so we can throw down.
Yeah.
We can take our science vessels and turn them into warships. And we will make you hurt. And that feels thematic.
Sure.
At least to me.
And that's okay. I think I'll be better equipped to answer, are the Vulcans thematic, after we get the Vulcan Faction pack.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to do a follow-up episode on this.
Because thematicism is this weird, it's very subjective. Where, where one person feels very immersed in a theme, another person can go, that was all right. And I think I just kind of find myself on the theme. I don't feel like they're not thematic, but I'm having a hard time feeling like they're as immersive as they could be.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I saw the Vulcans as something that was almost feared. When they showed up, other races kind of went running. The Vulcans showed up. Enterprise would go running when they were really in trouble, the nearest Vulcan ship. That's where they'd go to. And with that, in this, the nearest Vulcan ship, that doesn't scare me. Ooh, there's a Vulcan around? Oh no.
Not
Whatever
even in
shall
Air
I do?
Pure are they the best.
Yeah.
Like, because the Zindi have some pretty good ships against this. Like, the Zindi have higher hull ships. They have the Cordelia can sink Vulcan ships pretty easily, and that's a defensive ship, but it can sink Vulcan ships. And the Andorians just blow the Vulcans off the map. The Romulans, I don't know how well they play against the Vulcans. I'm pretty sure the bird of prey suck against the Vulcans, but the drone ships probably do well.
Yeah.
The Federation can't fight the Vulcans.
With what? The
yeah.
NX-01?
The NX-01 can't fight. The Vulcans can probably kill the Tholians.
Oh, yeah.
Because the Tholian cards might be TOS era, but the ship that they actually give you in the expansion is Enterprise era.
Yes, it is.
So you can use it in both eras if you want to. So I'd say it's like, they don't have that feeling of grand superiority over that faction if you actually, go out and buy the bigger Zindi ships and the drone ship. It's just, no. Also, the model for the Sirach class is so tiny, it doesn't really... That ship was towering over the NX-01, the Sirach class.
I know. But since the Enterprise is a hero ship, it can't be tiny. They learned their lesson after the Constitution Enterprise.
I just don't know why they made the Sirach class so small.
I don't
either. We
don't know
get
anything.
into manufacturing right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so thematic, I would on a scale of 1 or like A, B, C, I would give the Vulcans a B, maybe a B- for thematicism.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the like C- D+ range.
No, okay. Well, if we're going all the way to D, then I'm Canadian. We don't really do A, B, or D.
I find the Vulcans in the somewhere between 65 and 75% thematic.
Yeah, I would say 75% at best in era. Otherwise, I guess their weakness as a faction makes them feel more like science vessels all around, which kind of adds to the thematicism. But they should be. They really need that Nebula class. Give them that Nebula class, please.
Yeah, and the faction pack will help. I have high hopes for that.
I do too. When it ships.
Yeah.
Okay.
Classic words.
So let's see.
All right, so that leaves us with our top 5, and for this one we went with top 5 favorite cards.
Because they aren't exactly the most competitive faction, and they don't exactly have more than 5 ships.
No, they have exactly 5 ships. Have some.
Yeah. And frankly, there are a lot of cards that I love that aren't necessarily great. So I thought favorites. Let's do favorites. So what's your favorite? What do you want to start at? Yeah, let's start at 5, going to 1.
Okay,
what's your number 5?
Starting at 5, Power Grid.
Power Grid.
Yeah, I
And
know. Power Grid's all the way down here.
okay, you definitely know more of the cards than I do. Then I feel like.
Well, I have a couple of those talents are above.
Yeah,
So
that would definitely push my list down as well.
I mean, I love Power Grid.
What made you
Power
choose
Grid's
Power
solid.
Grid? I mean, we've talked about it quite a lot, so I guess we don't really need to say why it's great. But
No,
do you have anything to say about Power Grid quickly?
it lets you do more of the stuff that you rarely get to do.
For me, I chose Kuvak, the captain, the misprint Dominion captain.
Okay, the infiltrator.
Yeah, which was good when you mentioned that they're a mix of Federation and Dominion. Here's your Dominion.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, they accidentally printed him with a Dominion icon on him. So if you're with a really rule stickler player, you might be able to play this on a Dominion ship, but probably not. Most people just know that he's a Vulcan captain.
Yeah.
The reason I pick him is I've seen a lot of people talking about certain cards. Well, I'll read his abilities quickly. After you move, if you perform a evade action, you may place 2 evade tokens beside your ship instead of 1 if your ship is not in the forward firing arc of any enemy ships. First off, that plays into the whole Vulcan staying at a distance away from the enemy. This isn't very good against Zindi, but all cards that have that caveat of you need to be outside of your enemy's forward firing arc suddenly become very viable when you're fighting against Borg. Because most Borg don't have forward firing arcs.
I keep feeling like there's some rule about Borg firing arcs and being like you either are always outside of it or you can never get outside of something that doesn't exist. And I forget which way that rule worked, and I can't for the life of me remember right now, but I'll look it up and I'll let you know in post.
Okay, all right. I have a big flashing either I'm right or I'm wrong sign.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it's one of those two.
Oh, he's 2 points and he gets you a captain skill of 4. I would say he's sort of the Vulcan version of Captain Rudolph Ransom.
Yeah.
When defending, if there is what's it called? Evade token beside your ship, roll +2 defense dice. So they feel like they could pair together nicely in a defensive fleet. Also, Kuvak kind of feels like a much better version of Harry Kim and Data, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They're the ones that, as an action, you get 2, but then you lose your ability to defend.
Mm-hmm.
But he just lets you do it. He honestly feels like he would be good on a Romulan ship because Romulans are good at staying out of arc.
Yeah. There's something there.
All right. So what's your number 4?
My number 4 is Captain Sopek.
Oh, I picked Sopek as well.
There we go.
For number 4.
The odds of us having a double crossover were rare, but Sopek's that card, even though he's tough to get that lineup to work, there's enough occasional combos that I like what he brings to the game, and the more crew that come out, the more viable Sopek becomes.
Also, is it possible to pair him with animated Spock?
Yes.
That is very thematic. Discard this card. Spend a scan token. The ship's attack cannot be cancelled this game round. And the ship cannot be prevented from attacking this game round. So yeah, Spock with Sopek. There's a combo right there.
I mean, you still have to have the action for the scan.
True, but there are ways to get that for free if you throw it on the right ship.
Yes.
Like an Excelsior.
So there's
there's
things.
He was originally going to be my number 1. But after the last game I ran with Sopek, I realized that the horrible truth that it is hard to get him to work. Now,
it is.
If you out there, listener, are a player who can run Sopek, or you think you can make Sopek work, please do, because I have the hardest time getting him to work. But but I know that David and I agree in the fact that we know that there is hidden potential in Sopek waiting to be unlocked. Should I do my number 3?
Sure.
Okay, so this one I picked up mainly because it reminds me of a resource which is no longer legal, but it was one of my favorite resources, and I think it became my favorite because I watched Wandering In a lot. And that was the flagship resource, which boosts a bunch of your ship's stats. So my third favorite card here is the combat vessel variant.
Okay.
Which is, it boosts the primary weapon of a Surok class by 1, and adds a weapon upgrade to your bar. There is a alternate version of this that costs, I think, less points but does less. So I like that because it's just, I am a sucker for taking weak ships and making them stronger, even if it is not economic at all. Because I like taking a small ship and being all like, oh yeah, this is a weak little science vessel. Just kidding! Punch to the face. Because honestly, isn't that like every Star Trek series?
Wasn't that also Wrath of Khan? We're just a Miranda class, part of one big happy fleet.
Oh, but when the Miranda class first dropped in Wrath of Khan, though, it wasn't a weak ship.
True.
Which is a bit weird. WizKids made the Miranda class pretty weak compared to the Constitution, but I think the Miranda class was around the same firepower strength. It was just a smaller ship.
Yeah. I mean, they gave the Reliant an ability that essentially made it equal to a Constitution.
All right, so what's your third place?
My number 3 is the Talkir.
Ooh.
I mean, not a huge surprise, but it's that defensive ship. You want to stay alive longer? Run the Talkir. You at least make your opponent do that 1 extra damage in order to kill you. So it's kind of what not to like.
Okay. And your second place. I will definitely not argue with the Talkir being on the list.
Yes. My number 2 is Caliphate. For all the reasons I talked about at the beginning. I can run a 1-point crew and a 1-point talent, and I can potentially make you discard your 5-point crew.
Yeah, that seems like a good investment. And let me guess, it doesn't have all that nasty restriction of shields and having to be not cloaked. Does it just work?
No, Caliphate is action, disable this card, target an opposing ship, range 1 to 3. Select a crew on this ship. Oh, the controller on the target ship selects a crew on that ship. But still, if they only have 1 or 2 crew, they're kind of limited.
It's not even a discard?
No, Caliphate is just a disable.
Oh man, now I want to run like one of those crew heavy ships. You could like throw this on the Robinson or
I mean, it is
the
a
Enterprise
unique card.
Constitution. Yeah, it's unique, but I mean, in a fleet, you don't really need more than 2 debuff oriented ships.
No.
So yeah, you throw 1 crew carrier on here, like a Constitution Enterprise or like the Bounty. Fill it up with just 1-point crew. Caliphate. Hang around somewhere in the back. Yeah, if you do this with the Bounty, keep your ship cloaked. Caliphate your enemies. And just keep discarding them. And does it need to be equipped to a Vulcan captain?
Nope.
Oh, then if you pair it with that Vidian captain who gets points, gets like a special thing every time he forces a discard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you can exchange them for, I don't know, attack dice or something.
I mean, it's still random rolls. It's
true, but it's only, you're using 1-point ammunition essentially.
Yeah.
So if you're filling up 4 crew slots, that's 4 points that you're going to lose. But that's 4 points to make them lose. Let's say they're running really expensive crew. They could lose 4 4-point cards.
They
And
could.
you could lose at max 1 4-point card, essentially.
Yeah. And you can do it as many times as you have crew.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it is an
Keep loading up.
action.
And bring some shuttles along to restock your ship's crew.
Bunch of crew on the shuttle. Hey, why did you need us?
I think
Um,
nothing. Now hop in the transporter.
yeah, just hop in the transporter, grab this weapon, you'll be fine. When you
I
hear the
think now
battle
we've reached the
music,
point where it's
fight.
the weapon is the ship is no longer cost effective, really, if you're bringing a shuttle along to restock it. But
No,
I
it's
don't know. I
not.
guess if you're going to be using a shuttle anyway for some other purpose,
Yeah.
you may as well do that. I guess. As much as I think it's not an economic way to play, it kind of makes sense actually. Like if you're using your shuttle for some other purpose, and you just happen to have a shuttle, throw some extra 1-point crew on another ship. And yeah, no, this could be a strategy. Maybe not the most legitimate strategy, but a strategy. Oh, my number 2 is I have a number 2 and an honorable number 2.
Okay.
My number 2 is Power Grid.
I can't argue with that.
We've already talked about how good Power Grid is. I'm not going to go on about it too much, but the honorable is Auxiliary Control Room. So Power Grid is 2 points, and you simply disable it in order to stop an Aux from being put beside your ship.
Mm-hmm.
Auxiliary Control Room gets the honorable 2 because it is similar to Power Grid, but it's a little bit worse. Auxiliary Control Room is 3 points, and you disable it to remove an Aux token. And Auxiliary Control Room you can get from the retail Takir class. Power Grid you can only get from the Blind Booster, but you can get multiple Blind Boosters, so you can get a lot of copies of Power Grid.
Yeah. Which
and
helps.
My number 1 is the Talkir, and we've talked about the Talkir a lot. And my honorable for number 1 is Solek, because he's similar to the Talkir, and he comes with the Talkir.
Okay. Yeah, Solok was on my top 10 when I did my top 10 Vulcan, so certainly like him.
So, drum roll for your number 1. I'm pretty sure I know what it's going to be, but...
Oh, okay, take a shot. What's my number 1?
Vulcan High... No, Diplomacy.
Yeah, it's Diplomacy. I mean, we talked enough about it. Diplomacy is the top Vulcan card that gets played in tournaments, in worlds and nationals, and beyond that, because we're trying maybe not to just talk about high level competitive play. It is a card that helps the Vulcan faction. Period. It fits what Vulcans are trying to do. They're trying to live longer. This is one of their best chances at attack mitigation. And they do it really well. Diplomacy is, it's an action and a discard, and it targets an enemy ship. But you get to be selective about it. It is one of the very few action discard 5-point cards that I actually like. And that says something, because most 5-point action discards are terrible. It just kind of felt like a default in WizKid's design space was, we need a card, make it cost 5, make it an action, make it a discard. Okay, now we can let it do something. But this one actually justifies the cost. So, yeah.
All right. So, do we have any closing statements about the Vulcans?
About the Vulcans, WizKids, give us the Vulcan Faction pack.
Yes.
Please? I'm not sure that niceties are still entitled after like 2 years. I don't know. You're Canadian.
Yeah, we're coming up on the 2-year mark. Yeah.
Yeah, you're Canadian. Your people are notorious for being nice. Are niceties still expected after 2 years of being promised something?
Oh.
That sounds like a yes. Okay, WizKids, please.
Yeah, like
It never hurts. It never
I could
hurts
bring
to
up
be
action.
nice, right?
It never hurts to be polite because it never hurts to be polite, but you can be stern
We
and
we
you can
we
still gripe,
want
grumble, and complain. Complaining is allowed. Complaining is not necessarily seen the same as being rude.
we
Just be
want
polite about
to
your complaints.
buy the product.
Yeah, like I want to buy this, and I want other people to buy this. Like
I want to
that's one of the
review
reasons why I make this
this.
show. I want more people to play this game.
Exactly. Like, I guess we're being selfish in a way. We want more things to talk about. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think beyond this, beyond all of that, we should probably be done because this is well over an hour.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think we both know the exact words that this episode has to end on, though. The words said by almost every Vulcan. Live long and prosper.
you filthy pink skin. Oh wait, that's Andorian.
My heart. Just kidding. I don't feel emotion.